Hey guys, what's up? This is a new tutorial about cycles, and I have not found many tutorials about cycles online, and most of them just tell you how to set up your scene. They do not discuss material in detail. So that's what I'm going to do today. And this is what you see when you download the latest version of cycles on graphicall.org, and this is 2.59 with cycles and CUDA. And I just set my render device to CUDA or GPU, and it froze my entire system. So I'm not going to do that now, but it does work in theory, and it works pretty fast too. And yeah, right now I'm not going to worry about this scene. I'm going to create my own scene. And first I'll just add a camera. As a reminder, again, this tutorial is not about modeling, it's about materials, so I'm gonna use models that I have created already. So I'm going to just use, well, let's actually use Suzanne and mesh, monkey, okay, Control 2, and let's give her a material. And right now, in the world settings, the strength is set to 1 and the color is set to black. So I want full control over my lights, so I'm going to set all of this to 0. And okay, that's Suzanne on a plate. Let's see what happens if I press render. I'll just call this cycles. And I'm not going to press render, actually I'm going to go to rendered view. So everything's black, perfect. So let's get some light going. I'm going to start off with the sunlight, because the sunlight is actually the light that works in Lux Render and in most of the other renders. And as you may know from the Blender render engine, the sunlight creates parallel light rays, so it does not matter where the sunlight is placed. Only the direction of the sunlight, the rotation, that matters. But in cycles, apparently, that is no longer the case. I'm going to split this view, and I'm going to go to top view in this one, and set this to rendered again. And as you can see, the sunlight, if I move the sunlight, the shadows and the lighting change, so the sunlight is now actually a point light, which is a bit, well, I don't want to say disappointing, but I was hoping the sunlight would still work, because it just makes outdoor scenes so much easier to light. Okay, you could see that the sunlight was casting a really harsh shadow, and that was because the sunlight is a point light now, and it has no dimensions. If I use this as a light, I'll have to give it a material in the material settings and choose emission. Now you can see we have a light in the scene again, and the scene is starting to get lit. And if I now scale this light down, you'll see it decreases in strength, but I can compensate for that by increasing the strength. And you can see by scaling the light, I can harshen the shadows. Now this shadow is really hard. If I scale this light up, not only will the light intensity go up, which I guess it makes sense, but it makes it a little, maybe that's going to be changed in the future as well. But you can see now the shadow is a lot softer now that my light source is bigger. So I'm going to delete this light source, and I'm going to crash Blender. Okay, that is restored. So I prefer mesh lights that actually are flat. It's just not necessary to have the mid light in all directions. I think it just increases computing time. So I inserted a circle, pressed F6, and I'm going to check fill. And if you know, and I think cycles lights are double-sided, which means that they are casting light in both directions, this one and this one. If not, you can easily double check that by going to pressing N here, and on the display you can select face normals. And you can see now the face normals point towards my object, so even if it's not double-sided, my object will be lit now. Okay, let's give this material, and again an emission material, and I should make it a habit to save very often. The Cycles version that I'm using now is a lot more stable than the 2.57 I used before, in which I could only render like one more complex object. As soon as I put two of them in the scene, like the spider and my leaf, then it would crash. I can render the spider and the leaf separately, that works, but not both at the same time. So let's have another look at the rendered version of my monkey. Okay, that looks fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unwrap the monkey to show you a little bit of material, well, how would you say, material extras. Let's call it extras. Okay, just mark the seams, and I'm just gonna be real quick about this. Doesn't matter if it's a real good unwrap, it just matters that it's unwrapped in general. Okay. Okay, here is my finished unwrap. So it's not perfect, and you can see the ears are smooshed, but I'm just gonna stay away from the ears and we'll be fine. And if you click this plus button, then Blender will most likely crash, at least it does when I'm clicking it. So what I'm going to do is click plus and create a black texture. And for some reason you can't assign the texture to a UV layout. It might be because it's not assigned to the material. So as I said, if I click new here, Blender will crash. So I'm going to add a new material, and I'm going to add a texture over here. In the node editor, press Shift A and add an image texture. And this image texture can be configured with the normal texture tab over here. So I'm going to select Untitled, and that's it for now. Now you can see it's automatically assigned to that. So what I want to do is texture paint, and I'm going to just this one, texture paint, and T gives me my options, and I think this is all alpha. Nope, it's not. Let's just use, I wanted to use white on black, but my monkey is already white, so textured. There we go. You can't see it on the monkey for some reason, but you can see it over here. There are two monkeys. No? Okay. Let's check what's going on there. Object mode and material. I have no idea what just happened, but you can see the painting somehow worked, and my monkey now has a black and white texture. And the reason why I did that is so I can use this texture. I can use it as a map, and if I add an input, texture coordinates, I can say UV. I'm not sure how to choose which UV layer, but I think there's only the option of choosing one of them. So if you have multiple UV layers, you have to delete all the ones that you don't want, and to make sure that Cycles chooses the right one. Okay, if I now render this, probably a good idea to save before I do so. My monkey is all black, and you can see here it's double-sided, but my monkey is still all black. And this is actually something I have experienced before. I'm really not sure what the reason was, but for some reason when I generated textures in GIMP or outside of Blender and they were black and white, grayscale, cycles would just ignore them and treat them as black, like this one. So I changed into colored mode in GIMP, and still that was not enough. I had to actually make a red line across. I'm not sure if that's actually what solved the problem, but ultimately after I made this red adjustment to my model, then it actually did work. So I really have no idea if this is a bug or if I'm doing something wrong, but let's just try this. And since it happened to me, of course, I want to save you the time in figuring this out, but apparently that did not work. Nope. Okay, maybe we have to save this. I'll try and figure something out. Yeah, actually that did work. So saving the PNG file did work, and you can now see my beautiful monkey with his new makeup. So as I said, sometimes image textures get ignored, so you have to do a couple of tests, like saving it out or making it not grayscale, so RGB. Okay, now let's this time use two different materials on this monkey. So all I'm going to do is duplicate this diffuse node, and I should probably go out of rendered mode, because as I said, if you change too many of those node settings, then your render might crash if you're in live render. And this time I'm not going to use the texture as a color input, but I'm going to mix those two materials together. And if I now select closure is basically material, I'm going to select a mix closure and mix the two materials together. So if I go to rendered view now, we should see a half blue and yellow monkey, halfway distributed. Each one should be half, and the reason why this monkey is a lot more yellow than blue is, I think, because this light is a lot more yellow than white. Okay, but that doesn't matter. I mean, who would ever mix two of the same material with a different color together? That just does not make sense. So I'm going to use the color here as a factor. And now this is actually working pretty well. Since this gets computed from top to bottom, the blue input comes first, and then the yellow input is calculated after that, and the factor is coming from the grayscale information of the image texture. So if you want to mix two materials together in cycles, you can use these image textures as a map to where which material is visible. So let's say I do like the map that I created, but I want the yellow material not to be this prominent or dominant. In the Blender materials, you could just add a color node, a curves node, but I don't know if this is not there yet or if it's not planned. But you can't add curves or levels or ramp nodes anymore. But I found a workaround for if you just have a black and white texture, then you can use a math node. The math node is under converter, and if you put that in here, now you can see I'm adding 0.5 to the white of this material, so the yellow gets more prominent. If I subtract this, it should do the opposite. There should be more blue, which is exactly what happens. But you can see this is very absolute. So if you want to make the mix more soft and generally, what you can do is say multiply and use your value. If you set this to 1, there's no change because times 1 is the same thing. Set this to 0.5, it gets softer, and if you want to invert it, set it to Nope, actually my multiply with negative value seems to make the map entirely black. So, okay, this is working. We can mix two materials together, and of course this makes a lot more sense if the two materials are actually different materials. So I'm just gonna set this to be a velvet node. You get a list of all the nodes that are used over here in this panel. So if I click on the texture, you can see the image texture is actually that one. And you can see that the closure 1 is the blue one, the closure 2 is this one, and then there's the mix node is not visible here. Ah, there it is. The mix node is what the general type of material is. So if I set the yellow node to a velvet material, which is my favorite at the time, it just looks very nice, then you can see that this looks very weird. But yeah, that doesn't matter. This is just for test reasons. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to load a scene that I've already created and talk about image textures a little more. Okay, in this scene I have a spider that some of you might know already, and this spider is sitting on a leaf. And depending on the leaf material, you can see the leaf is actually kind of a complicated material. Depending on what I was going for with the leaf, the velvet would produce a very bright leaf, and the glossy material for the leaf would actually create a very black leaf, very dark. And I did not want to go out of Blender all the time and change the brightness in GIMP, just so I can adjust the brightness of the material. That was really annoying, so I found a workaround. Let's just isolate the leaf here. I'm just going to hide everything else, and I'm going to save this as cycles.tot now. Okay, the leaf, I'm just going to give the leaf an entirely new material. So new. Now the leaf is white, and I'm going to give this a texture, input, texture, image texture, and if I go here, I already have my leaf. Okay. It apparently already environment texture, image texture. Ah, there we go. Image texture, and I want my leaf. Leaf 6 apparently is white. Leaf. Okay. Ah, yeah, of course, it's not connected. So, I'm going to connect this. Ah, there we go. Now my leaf is very bright green. I don't want that. And just to make sure, I'm going to get a texture coordinate input, connect the UV to the vector, and we have the texture, the UV unwrap of the leaf as a default input. Okay, let's try and make this leaf texture a little darker actually. So I thought, well, it worked fine with my map settings, so the math should make it darker as well. Problem is, you can see the math node has a gray output, which means that the output it gives is actually not color. So I can, of course, lower the brightness of this thing, but it's going to be black and white, and this is no good for me because I wanted color texture. So what I came up with was I add a color mix node, and both those colors are going to be my leaf texture. And of course, if you mix the same image on top of itself, it's not going to change much. But if we set this to multiply and increase the factor, you can see how the leaf is getting darker. So you can also mix this with a black color, and you can also make the leaf darker, but this is going to subtract contrast. So if you want the full contrast but the leaf darker, you can just multiply the material on top of itself. So this is probably not the most elegant method, but it does work. And of course with screen you will get the leaf to be brighter. So this is what I've come up with so far. If there's a more elegant way, let me know. but so far it works. Okay, now let's talk about displacement. Displacement is basically what normals used to be. So what I'm going to do is press Shift D, duplicate this, and put this into the displacement section. And I'm now going to mute this texture actually, because there we go. Because as I found that if you have a fairly strong contrast on your model already, it kind of works like a normal map already. So actually, a lot of times I just left the normal maps unchanged because it looked like a normal map already. Now you can see, I'm going to turn off. No, I'm not going to turn it off. I'm going to just continue with that. You can see over here we got the normal maps. Now those look a bit too strong, so what I'm going to do is create a math node again, converter math, and I can again with multiply change the factor of this normal map. Change this to 2. You can see the normals are getting a lot stronger, so that's working very, very well. Okay, that's basically the normal material. And for my final spider image, which is this one, I used mixed material for the spider, and I'm just gonna unhide this. And if you hide selections, if you unhide stuff, if you change layer, if you move things to other layers, make sure to set the live render to be off. So let's just analyze the material of this, and we'll be done. Originally, I have painted for this material. I had painted this map here for this material, and this was supposed to show where the spider material was velvet for the body, and for the legs I wanted the spider material to be translucent, or in my case rough glass. So I thought, let's just paint a map and use it just in the way I just explained with the monkey. Unfortunately, that looked very bad because the legs were actually glowing down here and the body was not transparent at all. So to my great disappointment, I had to use the simpler solution, because I actually prefer using the more complicated solution, because then you feel like you really thought about it and you really put some thought into your model. So this actually does look more complicated than it is. I just have I used a black and white version of my painted map of the spider, and increased the contrast a little and used it as a normal map. As discussed earlier, I used the two materials, the velvet and the rough glass material, and just mixed them together with the mixed closure, so there's no map used at all. It's just a 50-50 mix between the two, or actually it's not. It's 25% of this is the velvet and the rest is the glass material, and I also use the glass for the volume, although I have to admit that I'm not sure if it makes a big of a difference if I don't use the volume material. There's one last thing I want to show you, and this is actually something why I really like cycles, because since basically every renderer is sort of limited, even the physically based ones are limited, there is a very high demand in my eyes. Okay, let me put it this way. It is very important that you're able to cheat. So cheating in Blender is basically, you can put in the diffuse material, you can tell Blender how much light the material is going to receive. You can tell the material to cast a shadow or not. You can tell all the different things. So that's cheating, and that's absolutely necessary, and I love it. So in cycles there is still some cheating possible, which of course I love. And let's just give this monkey a glossy glass material and make it blue. And to my knowledge, the transparency of the material, at least in LuxRender, this is the case. In Cycles, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's as well. The transparency of the glass material will be determined by the darkness value of this color. So if you put this down, your glass will be less transparent. And the color, of course, will be determined by the color. So let's just give this a lamp material real quick. Rotate it, and maybe move the camera over here. Or maybe even create a new camera. Okay, new camera. Good. Let's just render this, or save first. Okay, you can see the monkey head is not very transparent, so let me move this further down, and you can see it gets more transparent, so that should actually still be the case. And to demonstrate what I want to show you, I want to move the camera downwards more, and you can now see that Cycles is producing nice caustics. Maybe this plane should have a darker gray so we can see the caustics a lot better, and maybe we should... Yeah, this is weird. I actually removed the link, but still the background is gray. I'm not sure what's happening there, I gotta admit. Yeah, we'll have to deal with that. So you can see the caustics are working fine. But let's say I want more caustics, which of course is unrealistic, but maybe sometimes you want... maybe you have another light source over here and it's killing your caustics even though it's just a fill light. That happens to me with shadows all the time. I think the shadows in the physically based renders are really sensitive. As soon as there's another light source, no matter how minute, the shadows get overpowered. If I'm doing something wrong, please let me know. But in Cycles you can cheat. As I said, it's awesome. So if I set an input light path, you can see that I have a lot of different options here. And if I say is transmission ray, then our light source turns black. The monkey is now lit by the global illumination that I can't turn off, and the rays that this lamp is actually casting do nothing but the caustics, the transmission caustics. I set this up to 1000. You can see what I mean. The scene did not get any brighter, but the caustics got more. So I can do this with everything. I can do this with a shadow, but the shadow is a bit limited because if you have a stronger lamp that's casting a shadow, that kinda doesn't do much. So what you can do is you can add a closure, add closure. So if I put this add closure in between here, duplicate the emission closure, and put the normal closure on top, you can see this is very bright. You can see we now have an over-proportional shadow. So in the same lamp, you can actually choose different types of light and amplify or decrease them just by determining what kind of light ray this lamp is emitting and in which way to mix them. How do you say? To which degree to mix them. So with an add node, you can keep mixing different rays. So if you want, you could actually split the entire light group using the add closures and have a different value for all these values that you have over here. So if I just make this diffuse ray, I'm sorry, I actually do not know why this turned green right now. So I'm just gonna unplug this again and leave you with that. You can no longer cheat with the materials. You can't say I don't want this to cast a shadow, to my knowledge, but you can cheat with the lamps. So this, I think, is a very nice feature because it gives you a lot more control over your scene, and I hope I will find a lot more nice cycles renders, because no offense to those who I've seen, but they were not very complex, and I am sure there are a lot of Blender artists out there who can do better. That's actually kind of harsh. I apologize, but still, I'm looking forward to nice cycles renders. Right, thanks for watching, and goodbye. And as a bit of an add-on, I used to be not a great fan of tutorials that started off with models that they didn't create. For example, with downloaded movie scenes, and well, you get the picture. If you want, just leave a comment and tell me that you want a tutorial about creating a spider. I was thinking about a hairy tarantula in the style of this one. I can make it fully rigged, fully textured, fully haired, and that would be, of course, a very long tutorial, but if you guys are up for it, just let me know and I will composite this tutorial. Yeah, thanks.